Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of BizBooks. My name is Gene Marks. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm really happy that you are here. This obviously, for people that listen to the show and watch the show on YouTube, I interview some super smart authors of great business books, and we discuss the books themselves and what we can learn from them. And today, I have Claire Jarrett with me. Claire has written, her book is Rapid Google Ads Success: How to Achieve It in 7 Simple Steps. Claire is speaking to me now in July from a boiling hot Bristol, England. Claire, thanks very much for joining me.
Oh, you're very welcome. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm glad that you're here. So first of all, let's talk a little bit about you. So you've written this great book, which I read through, and I actually made my own digital marketing manager buy a separate copy of it because I enjoyed it that much. How did you come about to write this book? Tell us a little bit about your background.
Okay, so my original background with Google Ads has been right back since 2007, 2008. I started teaching it. So my originally, before setting up my first business, I was actually a secondary school teacher.
Okay.
And then I set up an IT training company because that was a subject I was teaching in schools, PowerPoint, Word, etc. But then once I started training in PowerPoint and Excel, etc., I very rapidly realized that people were more interested in what I was doing to bring them to the courses. Where was I finding these PowerPoint attendees or filling these Excel courses? And I started thinking, there's something to this, because I'd learned Google Ads from scratch, mainly following online tutorials. I think Perry Marshall had something out there back then. And I just fell in love with Google Ads and could see how badly small business owners needed it. So in 2008, I actually recorded a DVD set, which I still have. It's not for sale today, of course, because things have changed so very fast. But this was the world's first Google Ads training set back then in 2008, 2009. But then the actual idea for the book, so then moving on to the idea for this book, I was actually sat on a plane back in, I think it might have been February, March, earlier this year. And I was actually reading a book that was talking about setting a goal and actually getting completely behind it. Because I've published a couple of books before, and I thought, you know what? I'm going to set a goal that I really want to get behind. It's going to be a really good book. Good. It's not just going to be any book. It's going to be a book that is really going to transform the way that people think about Google Ads, that's really going to teach them something they need to know, stop them from being ripped off by Google or cold called by agencies, and that really will do its part to change business owners' lives. So that was the idea behind it.
And I think you've achieved that with this book. I mean, there are other books, as you know, there are plenty of other books out there about, Google Ads and Google AdWords and digital marketing. This book is very detailed. And when you say it in like 7 simple steps, you really do outline, the particulars of what you need to do to create and track, measure ads. And make sure that they're successful. It's a really good guidebook. So I do,
thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So before I get into some of the details, you just mentioned about some of the pitfalls with like with Google and you getting ripped off or whatever. I went to a conference. It was pre-COVID. It was like but it was late like 2019. And it was a conference by a company called Moz, M-O-Z, which I'm sure you bumped into, right? Yes. And it was in Seattle, and it was a digital marketing conference, right? So I went there for 2 days. I heard 2 days of presentations from some really smart people that were like digital marketing experts, at large brands, at agencies, independent consultants, and they would all come up to talk about their approach to doing Google Ads, and every single one of them, my takeaway, and these are like the smartest people in the industry, basically walked away, basically saying like, we really have no idea what Google is doing, like we're just trying to figure it out. It's like this big mystery,
Totally.
What are your thoughts on that? I mean, like, you've written this book about, being successful with Google Ads, but even some of the smartest people in the business realize that it's like this Pandora's box. How do you answer that question? Like, that your approach is going to be better than anybody else's.
Yeah, okay, that's a really good question. Well, I firmly believe that small business owners need to be heavily involved in their own marketing. And I have a strong dislike when people abdicate their marketing. I've been in that situation earlier on in my career, attempting to manage people's Google ads, where they would give it to you, tick a box, and then say, there you go, it's your job to deliver leads for the business. It doesn't work like that. You absolutely have to understand what's going on. You absolutely have to understand the conversation that's going on in a prospect's mind, and that will be reflected in the type of keywords that people use. And if you're bidding on the wrong type of keyword, and it could be something simple like the difference between a singular and a plural, or the difference between training and course, for example, is intense. The difference between coach and consultant, the differences in the nuances in the words, really, you do have to jump into that thinking like your prospect. And also you as the business owner have a far better understanding of why people are buying. So why on earth would you try and give that to somebody else to manage from day one, when really you need to hold their hand alongside it as they're going through that process?
It is absolutely the biggest mistake that I have made over the years in doing, advertising on Google. I myself, I mean, Claire, I run a business. I've got 10 people where we sell CRM software, like Zoho or Microsoft Dynamics, Salesforce. So we've got the kind of business where, maybe AdWords might be important, which I'll get to that in a minute, but I've always delegated it to somebody else. And I did exactly the opposite of what you're saying. And I have achieved the exact results that you would have predicted that I would have achieved, which are, less than adequate results because I'm not as involved. So, so your advice is, as a business owner, if you're going to get into the world of Google advertising, which is a complex, ever-changing world, you got to go all in. Is that a fair statement?
Absolutely. To get a deep understanding of it, even if you then intend to give it to somebody else to manage afterwards, at least make sure you thoroughly understand what the aim is with Google Ads to get it working.
It's fair enough. It's fair enough. Okay, let's dig into some of the details that you have in this book. And the best way that I can approach this interview is to sort of throw out, a couple, concepts that you mention, that you talk about, and then just have you give your thoughts on them. Do you know what I mean? And okay. If you're watching this interview or you're listening to this interview, just know that we're scratching the surface of what's in the book, but this gives you an idea of the kind of thoughts that you're getting. Okay. And Claire, I'm going to jump around a little bit, so I do apologize for that. I'm not going to sit there and go through every single page here, but let me first of all ask you for your thoughts on relevance. Why is relevance so important to Google?
So Google has acquired and cemented its position as the leading search engine because it has so strongly focused on relevance, and therefore it wants to keep that position. In order to get your ads at the top, Google needs to be sure that your ads are actually a match for what the other person's typing. So if they're typing in a keyword, then you want to show people an ad that precisely matches that keyword and take them through to a landing page that talks about that keyword. And that's how to get relevance all the way through, because relevance is about making sure that the person sees something that is of as close a match as possible for what they're looking for. And what Google will reward you with in terms of the relevance is a higher quality score, which means that you'll then get lower cost per click. But also, one of the main things that I talk about a fair amount is the fact, if you get high relevance and high quality score, your ads will appear when your competitors don't. And sometimes you don't even know that your ads aren't showing. And this is a real common problem that I spot when I audit accounts. You don't even know that your ads aren't showing some of the time. And that sometimes Google judges your relevance, your quality score as so low the minute you set up in an account that your ads don't even start showing. And you've got no idea why. There's no metric in there that you can really look at that shows you that. So you really do have to focus on it to get the relevance as high as possible.
Okay. And what's your advice on achieving that relevance? I mean, it's all about keywords. You have a whole chapter why keywords are the key. So talk to me a little bit about keywords and your thoughts on them.
Okay, so it's essential to identify a list of keywords that are directly related to the conversation in your prospect's mind, that are when they're intending to buy.
Right.
So I talk about keyword pathways and the type of keywords that people might use. So for example, if somebody was going to start off buying a pair of shoes, they might start off, it's admittedly unlikely, but they might start off by going to Google and just looking for shoes.
Right.
As they refine that further down, they're then going to refine it perhaps by leather shoes, then perhaps by black leather shoes, then refine it further to black leather shoes size 7, or perhaps black leather shoes size 7 with heel. Now, your job is to identify the buying keywords wherever possible that, and especially as a small business owner, you do not want to be entering the conversation at the shoes or black shoes or leather shoes conversations, or in terms of advertising at those levels. Let's leave that to Walmart, Amazon, etc. You know, the big advertisers that have got lots of money to waste. As a small business, you should be concentrating very carefully on the buying keywords that are refined. They will probably be containing brand terms, or they will be very specific local terms, such as local locksmith near me, for example, something like that. Super specific keywords, but that still trigger enough search volume in Google. Because if they don't get enough search volume, then Google will just give you a red message that says they're not getting enough searches. I can't help. So your aim is to build up this list of keywords. And even now today, you know, it is still the top mistake I find in accounts I audit is the keywords are too broad. If in doubt, go as far down the pathway as you possibly can. Even if you're just starting with a list of really super specific keywords, you can always add more in later.
Tell me about SpyFu. Why do you like that tool so much?
So SpyFu I love because I can see which keywords a competitor is bidding on. But it means I can also see if a keyword is a good keyword. So let's say, for example, let's pick the CRM software. So let's say CRM software, for example. So CRM software, I would look in SpyFu to see which advertisers have been bidding consistently on that particular keyword term. And if we don't find anybody that's been bidding consistently, as in they've just appeared once or twice over a 12-month period, then that's bad news. It means they're not getting it working consistently. Right. In SpyFu, if you can find advertisers that have month in, month out, been advertising every single month on that keyword term, you can presume it's working for them because they are consistently at the top. And from there, you can then go and see what ad copy have they been using? What have they been testing? What have they been changing? And SpyFu allows you to do that. You can also see which keywords other similar keywords they're bidding on. And you can also use it to pick up some keywords they didn't realize they were bidding on. So that's also quite handy because you can see a list of negative keywords, things you don't want to appear for as well.
Tell me about negative keywords, because you write about that here in this chapter. This is chapter 3 of the book. Why are negative keywords bad?
So negative keywords in terms of in terms of how I see them, negative keywords aren't really bad as such. I would say we want to build a list of hundreds or thousands of negative keywords. And that would be good if we can build that list of negative keywords, because then we prevent our ads from showing for it. So we might have things like free or cheap or complimentary. What other favorites of mine are people quite often looking for job or jobs, apprentice or apprenticeships, etc., that type of thing. Now, the reason you build up a list of negative keywords is because otherwise your ads are appearing for things you don't want them to appear for. And that will cost you money in terms of the clicks. I mean, yeah, that's pretty obvious. Yeah, you're getting clicks for things. You can see that in the search terms. You think, right, well, I didn't want to appear for that. And that's your obvious, that, okay, I'm wasting my budget there. But as well as that, there's the other unseen danger, which is if you haven't added lots of negatives that you need, that you've not yet spotted, then your click-through rate will be lower than it needs to be, because you're still being matched against, Google's still showing your ads against lots of irrelevant terms. So you need to go and add negative keywords, and what will then happen is your click-through rate will go up, your quality score will go up, your cost per click will go down, and then you will start to get leads in more cheaply, you will enter the auction more often, and it's just this constant circle. You know, it's so necessary to continually add negative keywords.
You mentioned also, and we'll get off, we'll move away from keywords in a minute, but I just wanted to make sure some of the concepts here are so important. Localization of your keywords. I mean, whenever I read about doing Google ads, Google loves local, and again, you use the example of me as a CRM person. If I, Claire, if I advertise, like we sell, for example, like Zoho, okay, which is big, CRM product. If I do all the keywords related to Zoho, trust me when I tell you that Zoho Corporation not only has chosen all these keywords, but they've got a much bigger budget than me as well. So they're dominating. I mean, if you put in Zoho related phrases or keywords, they're coming up. I'm like down at like the 4th page of a Google search. So but if I go local, it does make a difference. I'm located in Philadelphia. So if it's like Zoho Consultant Philadelphia or Zoho Help Philadelphia, I tend to get better results. So Google likes local. Tell me about your thoughts on localizing the keywords that you're using.
Yeah, definitely. I love localizing keywords, and it's how I love to help my small business clients and readers to be able to compete against the big guys for exactly that reason. So the will writer that I mentioned in the book, that's the approach we've taken with his campaign, separate landing pages for multiple different towns that he's near, pushing the local aspect, buy from your local will writer. And in your case, buy from a local consultant. Even if they'll never meet you, they're going to talk to you across Zoom. People like that reassurance of knowing that you're local. And Google will reward you for that. I'm sure I read a statistic recently about the proportion of searches containing near me had gone up by, I think it's like 50% or 60%. So that was an approach that we're now using more and more. So will writers near me, personal trainers near me, locksmiths near me. Anytime you can do that approach as well, exactly the same applies.
I don't want to sound like this is unethical or anything, but I mean, if I'm still going for a national audience. I mean, I would like to attract customers in Philadelphia, but I'm still out for, clients in Chicago and, Miami and LA as well, So you mentioned about building separate landing pages, which we'll talk about landing pages in a minute, but, I mean, is Google smart enough to know that if I decide to do keywords for Chicago, and have a landing page for Chicago, right? Is Google smart enough to know that my business is not located in Chicago? I mean, we have a contact us page and it says that we're in Philadelphia. Do you know what I mean? I mean, what are your thoughts on, is that an unethical approach? Or, I mean, we're a small business trying to battle against the big guys. So
absolutely.
Trying to do, it doesn't seem illegal.
No, it's not illegal. It's a good approach, and at the end of the day, the people themselves will make their own decision. They could go to the contact us page and look to see where you're located. In reality, very few do.
Right.
And these days, people do want that personal, friendly approach. And if you can still give that to them by targeting an area quite not so close to you, then absolutely, the end result is still the same. People get a great service.
Okay. All right. That's great. One final question on landing pages, critical for, I think, Google, ad search. Give us some of your thoughts on making sure that, we've got the right kind of landing page that Google will like. And are we limited to just having one landing page?
Yeah, okay. So I love setting up multiple landing pages because you can see the difference in the Google Ads conversion rates straight away. And you can take that as far as you want. So with a tool like Unbounce or similar, you could, every time you come across a group of keywords that's doing really well, you could then create a new landing page specifically talking about that to increase response rate, for example. So in terms of landing pages, I would be starting off at the top with a heading. So are you looking for, and in your case, it would be a Zoho CRM consultant. Right. So are you looking for a great Zoho CRM consultant? If so, I'd love to help. Maybe a little bit more about you, making sure you're including social proof, making sure that you've got ways in which they can convert easily, callback forms, maybe to book an appointment, maybe a phone call. But then making sure that you track everything very carefully, because these days, if we can put Google in charge of getting more leads for us, and you've got your page tracking leads, so let's say that maybe 1 in 20 of your visitors is converting into a prospect and actually picking up the phone and calling you, then as long as you're getting a certain, maybe a handful of leads a week, before long, you can put Google in charge of the bidding, and it spots the type of people that actually fill in these landing pages, that are picking up the phone and calling you or filling in the form. So the landing pages, when set up well to convert, then tie directly into letting Google do what it now does best, and that's in terms of the target cost per acquisition bidding. If we can put Google in charge of the bidding and to get more leads for us, then that's really the ideal situation.
That's great. All right. Now listen, don't freak out, because I'm going to go all the way to the last chapter of the book. Although I do want to, we're going to circle back, because I do want to talk about budgeting. I do want to talk about, tracking and optimize. We don't have, we only have 45 minutes. We don't have time to cover all the stuff that's in this book. But one thing that intrigued me, which I think would intrigue a lot of my clients, my CRM clients, is your chapter on remarketing. And I have a few questions on remarketing. For starters, you don't seem very bullish about the long-term prospects of remarketing, given some of the changes that Google is making right now about cookies and such. Can you give us some thoughts on, first of all, maybe you can define what remarketing is, and just so we all know, like what your thoughts are on the future of this.
Yeah, okay. So remarketing is when you can follow your visitors around. So they have a pixel on their computer that has been placed there, and they're then being followed onto Facebook or Google Ads or LinkedIn, etc. You can actually follow people onto multiple different places, not just Google, from your pixels. And I love remarketing, I really do. But I do have a feeling that we are being pushed in the direction of not being able to use it as much because of privacy concerns. However, there will be certain ways around it. So I encourage people to be always collecting first-party data in terms of email addresses, etc., wherever possible, encouraging people to subscribe in some way. And then if you use those lists of email addresses correctly, as in, you've told people what you're using their data for,
yep.
If you then upload those back to Facebook as audiences, or Google as audiences, or LinkedIn as audiences, then you can follow those people around on those platforms. So that is my suggested way around it. And you can also link, so for example, you would be able to link all of your YouTube viewers, for example, anybody that's watched any of your YouTube videos, anybody that's subscribed to any of your YouTube videos, you'd also be able to tie that into your Google Ads account and run it technically as a remarketing campaign. So you would be able to follow them around with your ads as well, your past video viewers, for example.
Yeah, that really fascinated me. For example, say, our conversation right now, I have my BizBooks channel, where we are getting lots of views. And so, I would I would love to be able to reach out to the people. Clearly they're interested in topics or business books. So I would want to maybe potentially, have a campaign to keep bringing them back to the channel, or maybe to a specific author. So you're saying that there is a way that you can grab YouTube viewers on a channel, your channel?
You can indeed, yes, your channel. Yeah, you can just tie the two together. It's just in the linked account section. Yes.
Fascinating. And then that way, if you place an ad through Google Ads, you can actually, target your YouTube, the people that have visited your YouTube site. Is that correct?
You will be able to follow the YouTube viewers. Yes.
Yeah, I think that's really important. I think that's good to know. I know we have a lot of clients that they'll have an active YouTube site, and you mentioned earlier also about like email lists, right? I mean, if you have your own, and this is Facebook offers this, like you said, with audiences, but like, for example, we have a pretty giant list of emails that subscribe, say, to our Zoho newsletter, so, we could upload that to Google, and we could then target ads at that audience as well, correct?
Yes, yeah. And Google is attempting to push us in that direction now, as almost like they're warning us, telling us that remarketing isn't going to be as effective. Therefore, start making use of these lists of emails that you've got.
Got it. Okay. All right, let's circle all the way back now. Where I went all the way to the end of your book, and now I want to come back, and let's talk about campaigns themselves. Okay, and obviously, people that are particularly small businesses are looking to advertise. They're very, very budget conscious. So, tell us. Question number one is I'd like to hear your thoughts on creating a budget and how you can control that budget, and then I have another question to ask you after that. That's more, not political, but it's more general. But let's talk about budgets. What's your advice from your book? What advice do you tell your clients when it comes to creating and controlling a budget when you're doing AdWords? Because, your money can get eaten up pretty darn quick.
Yes, it can. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So the key advice to remember is that it's cumulative at the campaign level. So if you have 5 campaigns, then there's 5 different budgets. So if you've got 5 campaigns set at $10 a day, then your total daily budget at the moment is $50 per day. Now, within that, Google may then overspend on certain days. So to watch out for that. So what can sometimes happen is that one day it would spend 20 and then the next it would spend next to nothing, for example. So it will even it out, and that's the aim of it.
Right. And
what can happen with your budgets is, I've had a number of clients this has been happening to recently, is it's possible that if you have your campaign set up bidding for target cost per acquisition, then what can happen is Google may refuse to start. If your target CPA is set to low and Google doesn't believe, oh, sorry, I can't get you any leads for $5, that's far too low, then actually it may not hit your campaign budget. What will happen is your budgets don't actually get seen at all. But overall, to answer your question about how to keep an eye on it in terms of avoiding budgets running away, is to just make sure that you keep an eye on it every day. Remember that budgets are, if you've got 5 campaigns, then that's 5 different budgets. And to just keep a close eye on it. Never set a live campaign and then leave it for a week or 2. I would always suggest jumping in there every day in the early stages to keep an eye on it.
Claire, don't you find it just kind of disconcerting that we're setting a budget, we're telling Google, okay, we have a $500 budget or a $5,000 budget, and then we're just basically leaving it up to Google to decide how to spend our money, and then report back to us saying, oh, well, you got this many clicks and these many impressions. I have clients that tell me again and again, like, Google will tell me that, we set up a separate landing page. Google will tell me that this ad was clicked on 1,000 times, but there was only 10 visitors to our landing page. You know what I mean? Like, I hear that all the time. Do you hear that as well? I mean, and do you have any response to, a lot of end users' concerns that like you're just fully trusting in the power of Google, the people at Google to tell us how they're spending our money?
Yes. Yeah, it is. It is a problem, or it can be a problem. I have audited plenty of accounts where there's been a few really quite big mistakes made. And that would be, so in the example you just gave there, that's likely to happen in, I was auditing an account which was a Performance Max account, where most of the views were going to little videos that Google had auto created that weren't representative of the brand in any way. They were not actually landing on landing pages. They were people that were, they were clicking on the display network and ending up on lots of other people's websites. And then they were coming from the display network. Some of them were clicking through to your site. And then I had some where it was actually set up to optimize for conversions to try and bring in as many leads as possible. And they were getting lots of crazy phone calls from people that were just clicking the button and not even really realizing what they were calling up for.
Right.
So now that is Google's automation for you. Now the book very clearly warns you of every type of automation you can possibly watch out for.
Right.
And that's even some of the accounts I've mentioned, those have even been managed by agencies or set up by Google themselves, which I'm quite cross about, which is why I'm making it my mission to actually get as many people aware of this happening as possible. So yeah, absolutely, it can happen. I can tell you now that if I were to look at the account, I would be able to tell you exactly what had happened and why, and it will be down to some form of automation that should not have been on.
And I guess the best way to protect yourself against this gets back to what we talked about at the onset of this conversation. You've got to be involved, right? I mean, you have to be aware that these things could be happening, and you have to be, I guess, asking questions and tracking, and measuring, which we'll talk about in just a minute. But if you just leave it go and don't pay any attention and just expect your phone to start ringing, that's probably not a great, not a great approach. Ads. You have a chapter about ads and you're getting your campaigns set up. So first, let me ask you to give us some of your thoughts on ads themselves. Like, what ads do you like? What ads do you think are most effective in your opinion? What advice do you have for any of us that are looking to actually physically set up our ads for for Google Ads?
So the ad type that we are required to set up these days will be a responsive search ad. And that has multiple different headlines, multiple different descriptions. And the aim is that it's like a little game, because Google will give you a score as to how good a job you've done at creating the ad. And as you're filling in the ad, it will say poor, average, good, excellent, and your aim is to try and get it to excellent if possible. Now, how you get it to excellent is by including as many of the different keywords. So if you've got 5 different keywords in an ad group, you need to make sure that those are in some way represented within the ad headings themselves. Now, as well as that, that's where I see some people stop, or they might just copy and paste in a couple of features. I would encourage you to go beyond that. I would encourage you to look at competitors to see where are they making their ads standing out. And something that I do like doing is, where can you use numbers or statistics or some type of figure, such as 95% of our clients come back, or 96% would recommend us, and or we'll get back to you within 24 hours or within 4 hours, or whenever you can include figures that makes your ads stand out. And within the description element of the ad, something I really like to do is social proof, and that's adding a snippet of a testimonial, such as something why people pick you or why people love working with you. And that's something that I don't see any other advertisers doing, and it really stands out. And at the end of the day, we're just bringing the social proof one level further from the landing page into the ad. And then my final point is to make sure that anything you're saying on the landing page must be anything you're saying on the ad must be matched on the landing page. Because if you've said something about some amazing offer that, you know, $99 or 25% off, grab this offer code, and then they click on the landing page and they can't find it, you will very quickly get the visitor bouncing back off, which Google will then reward you with a poor landing page experience that will drop your quality score. And so the spiral downwards continues.
How do videos figure into all of this?
So I don't really do a lot with videos. To be honest, in my opinion, they're not hugely watched. We've added conversion tracking to landing pages. They're very rarely watched. Okay. Google search is a search platform. Videos and YouTube, that would be, if people are searching a video platform, they would use videos.
Okay. All right, that's good. And by the way, that is absolutely got to be the topic of your next book, is just focused on YouTube advertising, you know, because that is right. I mean, it's a whole other area. People tell me, I've never really looked it up to validate it, but they say like YouTube is now the most searched platform, you know, in the world, you know, more so than Google. I don't know if that's true, but I do know there's a lot of people that are searching for stuff on YouTube and trying to succeed on there. What are ad extensions?
They are the elements of the ad. They typically appear underneath it. You might have site link extensions, which take people through to different pages. You might have phone extensions, which connect people directly to your office.
Right.
Image extensions, where you can have a little picture of you or a team member or of your product, something like that. They're basically a way of increasing your click-through rate. So definitely worth using.
Got it. All right. Fair enough. All right. So listen, this is such a great conversation, and I've only covered like just a small portion that's, of what's in your book. If for people that are going to buy your book, and I bet you after this conversation, a lot of people would and should, there are entire sections on, measuring and tracking your campaigns, optimizing, getting conversions, monitoring your campaigns, monitoring your competitors. It's a whole bunch of stuff, and we did speak about remarketing, but, in the last few minutes that we have, Claire, if there's anything we haven't talked about, is there any like significant thing you'd like, I would really want to make sure that your audience walks away with this specific knowledge about Google Ads that we haven't already talked about, that we think would be really, really important, that's in my book? Can you think of something? I'm sure.
Okay. Well, it's really continually pushing the idea about competitors and SpyFu, but bringing that all in together, which is there's never any reason to start a Google Ads campaign completely from scratch and go through a real steep learning curve, because all of the data you need is out there and available to you. All of the keywords that people have been bidding on, all of the ad copy that has worked for them in the past, everything that you need is available. Yet so many people start a brand new Google Ads campaign and are told or tell themselves, oh, it's going to take a while to work, it's going to take a while to optimize. Absolutely no, it shouldn't. This isn't SEO. This isn't something that's going to take months to work. All the data you need is available to you. And there's no reason why Google Ads shouldn't be bringing in leads for you really quickly, certainly within a week or two. And that's where I think Google Ads has such a strong benefit for business owners to start out with as a really great form of advertising. Because of course, from there, once you've found which are the best keywords for you on Google Ads, right, you also know those make sense to target for SEO. So you can tie that into a different strategy to achieve, longer term clicks and bring in more sales longer term.
When you say that all the data though is out there and available, you mean, that Google has this for us when we work with their platform, or that, through platforms like, like SpyFu or Moz or, anybody else? I mean, where do you go to get all this data? Is it mostly through Google?
It's a combination of places. So it would be a combination of SpyFu. It would be a combination of using the ad preview tool to see where people's ads are appearing. Combination of just looking yourself in Google so that you can actually visit their landing pages. It's I mean, if it was easy, hey, everybody would be doing it. And, so at the end of the day, we do still need a structure to follow. So it's hidden in a few different places, but that's why I'm so keen on teaching people that there is a simple step process to doing this. And that's just doing this competitor research, looking to see what they're doing well. And at the end of the day, if you make your campaigns the sum of your top 4 competitors, if you identify the top 4 competitors right now that are doing a great job in Google Ads, if you built landing pages that were as good or better and you bid on the same keywords, then it doesn't matter what size of business you've got, you would be getting in the same leads that they've got. The only thing that can stop you really is budget and the ability to be able to expand and cope with the amount of business that it brings in. Really, it is a phenomenal way of advertising and launching a business or growing a business.
That's great. Claire, how do people work with you?
So they would go to clairejarrett.com and they would go to the contact page, and they would then fill in the form to actually request a callback, or there is also a appointment booking scheduler on the website as well.
And what do you work by the hour or by project basis, and what kind of services do you perform?
So I'm available for either coaching, consulting, or my team and I do work on done for you campaigns as well. And that includes other things in Google Ads as well. Yeah, so it's whichever works best once we've had a conversation and identified what would work best.
Right. Got it. Got it. In the end, though, just to be clear, as valuable as your services are, and by the way, I'm going to be reaching out to you separately, but as valuable as your services are, in the end, it is on the business owner and that person's team to basically run with the ball, right? I mean, you're not going to sit there and I'm sure with your clients, it's not like you're spending 24 hours a day monitoring, each of your clients, success with Google Ads. They've got to learn from you and get coached by you, and then, and then do their thing, right?
Absolutely, yes.
Claire Jarrett is the author of the excellent Rapid Google Ad Success: How to Achieve in Seven Simple Steps. Claire, I've learned so much by talking with you. I think our listeners and our viewers will learn a ton by buying a copy of your book. I've already bought one, and so has Michael, my social media manager, has also done the same thing. We've just loved it so much. So thank you so much for joining us. I'm really had a great time talking with you.
Oh, thanks for having me.
You've been watching an episode of BizBooks. I've been talking with Claire Jarrett. My name is Gene Marks. Thank you very much, and hope you've learned something as well. Buy this book. We will be back in just 2 weeks with another interview with another great and smart business author like Claire, discussing his or her book. So we will see you then. Take care.